Desi Green's story really is stranger than fiction, Jeremy, Sue Parker explained, walking alongside her editor, Jeremy Kennedy, through the lunchtime crowded streets of Midtown Manhattan. And it would make a great read. It's okay, he said dismissively. But there are other stories, more recent stories that people actually remember, Sue. She'd been trying to talk him into letting her write this story for months, and he'd stonewalled her. You're talking about a murder that took place nearly 30 years ago. No one cares. He was right, of course. Sue Parker made her living writing books about the lives and times of axe murderers, child killers, and flesh-and-blood grim reapers, all of whom had committed their crimes years after Desi Green was sentenced for murdering a millionaire. Sue was known for telling the gruesome truth in her books, the no-holds-barred details of murders straight from the psycho's mouth. Desi's story, by comparison to what she was used to writing, was tame, but her motivation for wanting to write it was coming from another place. Okay, so she shot her mother's lover and went to prison for it. No big deal, I know. Then stop trying to pitch it to me if you know. It's dull. I don't think it is, Jeremy, she argued. And I don't want to write about the murder, I want to write about her. Let me say this slowly. He stopped, took hold of her by the shoulders and turned her to face him. Nobody cares. Women would care, she shot back quickly. The number of women in prison has grown by over 800% in the past 3 decades. That's almost twice the number of men, Jeremy. Then find a woman serial killer to write about, he said indifferently. Have you ever seen her? He let her go and started walking back to his office. Not lately. She was little more than a kid when they sent her to prison, Jeremy, and not much older than your daughter. He cut his eyes at her and quickened his pace. My daughter hasn't shot anybody lately, Sue. I think you can stop trying to woo me with Desi Green by comparing the two. She grew up in prison, she continued, doubling her steps to keep pace with him. What was that like? What did growing up in a place like that do to her? And what kind of woman is she now? It's touching. Real tug-at-the-old heartstrings kind of touching, Sue, but uninteresting. While she was in prison, her mother died. Can you imagine what it must have been like for her to come home knowing that the woman she loved more than anything was no longer part of this world? You've got half a block to convince me that this conversation is worth my time, he said curtly, and so far, you're failing miserably. Has she ever had a date, kissed a guy, made love to one? She's in her 40s now. How does she feel about the possibility of never having children? Pity, he said irritably. My answer is still no. $20 million, Jeremy. She stopped walking. He stopped too, and slowly turned to her. Desi Green, ex-con, felon, murderer, is worth $20 million. He tilted his head curiously to one side. How'd that happen? She smiled and folded her arms across her chest. If you'd been paying attention, you'd know. She could see the wheels start to spin behind his eyes. Gatewood money? Sue nodded. By way of Mama Bear, the woman was loaded, courtesy of that beautiful, dirty rich bastard Julian Gatewood. She never spent a dime of the money, and when she died, it all went to Desi. He took a step toward her. Am I correct in assuming that the Gatewoods are pretty pissed about it? Uber pissed. They hate her now more than ever. He nodded introspectively. Hate. That's good. Hate and millions of dollars and a dead man, that's even better. It's downright scandalous, she said smugly. Uber scandalous. It's the layers I want to peel back, Jeremy, she explained. On the surface, there's nothing here that anyone cares about, but I have a feeling. She pressed her hand to her stomach. Here. And you know how right on the money my gut instinct can be. He thought before finally responding. I'll have to try and get it past Mark. Mark was the publisher. Can you write me a riveting pitch? She reached into her purse and pulled out a large manila envelope. I thought about mailing it, but thought you'd be more impressed if I hand-delivered it myself. A spark twinkled in his brown eyes.